So you clicked on this video. That's your first good step. That's your first step in the right direction, right? You want to know how to start reading. You want to know how to pick up a book, right? You want to know where to start reading. You want to know how to start reading. So step one, first of all, you need to decide you're just going to start reading, right? You're going to decide, hey, maybe I want to pick up a book. Maybe I want to start reading. Maybe I want to start doing some, I just want to do some casual reading. Where do I start? How do I start doing that? I've been reading for a couple months now, and I've been trying to get more into it. I've been reading a decent amount, more manga than actual books. But I have been reading actual, like, real paperback books, and I just bought a couple, yesterday with my friends. I bought The Hobbit and I bought The Odyssey. And you're probably saying, okay, what does that have to do with me? Well, when you're figuring out how to start reading, when you're figuring out that first, progressional phase, what do I do to start reading? How do I start reading? Why should I start reading? What to do. So when you're thinking of what to do, right? You think you don't have any time to start reading, right? You don't think you have any time to, sit down and just take a book and start reading. Well, more than likely you have a decent amount of time. You just get home and you get right on your phone, you start scrolling, you start texting, you start doing whatever on your phone, or you hop on the PC and you start playing games, right? I'm guilty of it. A lot of people are guilty of it. That's why people don't really read, is because we're all guilty of being too lazy to pick up a book. Well, you definitely have the time to pick it up. So the first thing you do when you're thinking in your head, man, I want to read right now. That thought, as soon as it gets in your head, pick up the book. Start reading. Because if you don't act on that, you're not going to start doing it. So that's basically step one. Figure out why and when and how or what you're going to start reading for. What is step two? Step two is find your niche. Every single person in the world has things that they like, right? Whether it's sports or video games, movies, drama, music, whatever it is, right? Everybody has something that they like. For me, I like adventure, action, horror. I like a lot of things, but when it comes to something that I have to pay attention to, I like action. I like adventure. So I can name you 100 Marvel characters without, taking a second thought of, is that true or not? Because I pay attention. It's something I want to pay attention to. When it comes to reading, I can name you books, but I can't name you what they're about. And that's what I've been trying to get into. I've been trying to, figure out my niche. My niche in reading, I think right now, is fictional books. Either fictional books or philosophy, maybe even classics. Like, when I was at the store the other day with my friend, we saw Frankenstein. He picked up Moby Dick. There's a couple of classics there that I was like, man, I really probably should get back into those. But at the moment, I want to read fictional books like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, stuff like that, because that genuinely interests me. And that's going to get me into reading more. Once you figure out what is going to get you into reading, no matter what it is, it could even be something like, a 50-page book about finance. If you like finance, but you also want to start getting into reading, if you read through that finance book, you're going to start reading more books. That's just how it goes. So figuring out your niche is how you, continue to grow. That's how you continue to figure out, okay, this is what I want to read. This is what I like. I like manga. Let me go buy some more manga. Regardless of if there's drawings in there, there's still reading to do. I like dragons. Let me go get a dragon book. Stuff like that. That's step two. Find your niche. Now, what's step three? Step three is this is the trickiest part. This is the hardest part of the whole thing, right? Step three is narrowing it down to a couple books to choose from, to start with. If you figure out your niche and you're like, okay, let me go with let me go with a medieval fiction book, right? Which is kind of the thought process I was going down. If you go with a medieval fiction book, then you're going to want to, tend to go with a Lord of the Rings type of book, a Hobbit type of book, a Game of Thrones type of book, right? So if we narrow it down to those three, and then you go up to it and you see, okay, I've got my three options right here. Which one do I think I would read first? Do I think I would read the whole thing first? And then you're looking at the back and you're like, okay, well, it's about this, it's about this, it's about that. Oh, I didn't know so-and-so was in this book. I didn't know so-and-so made this book. Then you can narrow it down to like, okay, I'm going to choose this one. That's step 3, narrowing down the first book you're going to pick. Or in general, if you're just getting another book and you're just trying to get back into reading, you got to narrow down which one you're going to get back into. And step 4 is a little on the trickier side as well. It's setting aside a time to read, right? Because, yeah, you figured out what books you like. You figured out which book you're going to read. You figured out, I'm going to start reading. But now it comes down to when, where, how, the circumstances of how you're going to actually read, right? So for me, what I'm going to do is anytime I get free time, I'm going to be like, yeah, let me pick up The Hobbit. Let me start reading. And then once I get through The Hobbit, I'm going to get on the Odyssey. But I don't... Oops, my phone ran out of storage. What I was saying is I don't want to rush through the book. I want to be able to enjoy it. And to enjoy it, I want to be able to tell somebody about the book, right? So what I'll do, like I said, I'm going to set aside a time in the day to, start. I'm going to read 10 pages. Then the next day, I'll read 15 pages. Then the next day, I'll read 20. And I'll keep gradually increasing my reading count, my page count, until finally I'm done with the book. And I might just keep that same consistency throughout the books I read. Because if you set a plan, it's more than likely that you're going to stick to that plan rather than break off of it. If you didn't have a plan, right? If you have a plan with most things, you're most likely going to continue doing it. But if you don't have a plan, most of the time it fizzles out, right? Oh, but Drake, I suck at planning. I suck at setting a time aside in the day. Well, my only answer to that is just pick the book up. If you're not able to set aside a time in the day, then don't. Just pick it up as soon as you're free. If there's not a set time that you can be like, okay, I'm going to read now. I'm going to read at 8 p.m. every day. I'm going to read at 8 p.m. every day. Just read when you can. And some days you might not be able to. Some days you might be too busy. But there's definitely most days that you're going to be free enough to do it, right? So the last step 5, you figured out your niche. You figured out what book you're going to read. You figured out you're going to read. And you figured out the time you're setting aside in the day to read, right? So what's the last step? Well, this is actually the easiest step. The last step, just enjoy the book, right? You're reading through the book, you got everything you figured out, and you're like, oh my gosh, the Shire, I wish I never left the Shire. I wish I stayed in the Shire. It sounds like such a great place. Or you just, whatever about your book, right? You're enjoying the book. That's all you have to do. Once you figure it out, you just start reading and you enjoy the book. And I'll show you some of my mangas because I'm going to get more, but these are the ones I got and I'm pretty proud of them. Okay, so first of all, let me show off my sick freaking book holder right there. They hold the books in the middle. So there's the Odyssey. I've got Death Note, Black Clover, Bleach, Attack on Titan. Berserk's my favorite. Jujutsu Kaisen, some My Hero. This one I want to read. It looked pretty cool when I was there. Vagabond. I'm going to read that for sure. It looks awesome. Obviously JoJo and more Berserk. So those are the mangas I've got. This is my book collection so far. It's going to expand. And then obviously I have The Hobbit. So, maybe once I finish The Hobbit, I'll make a book review on it. And hopefully you guys will read it too. It looks like a good book. My friends are reading it right now. They said it's a good book. So like and comment, subscribe, and we'll get that out next. See ya.